and welcome to Cruising and Musing. I am your host, Rob. We are rolling across State Road 70 down here in Florida, and it is the flattest of the flats, so we're gonna make a little video, partially for my own entertainment and partially for yours if you're curious on what's going on with Studio A. So Studio A is a placeholder name till we get all the character work done to this 79 Continental. And we're currently rolling up on 4,800 original miles on this car. And now I'm about to say some things that'll piss some people off. I bought this car personally only for the body of the car. They don't make boats like this anymore, and I don't think they ever will again. Now, if I had realized then what I know now, I would have held out and tried to get like a 75 to 77 town car instead of the Continental. They're a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and the sheet metal on them is a little thicker, which helps go into making them heavier. And that's because I have always planned on turning this into a towing vehicle. So if I could have had the extra 500 pounds of sheet metal in the car, I would have wanted that, because having a heavier towing vehicle makes it easier to tow heavier loads and safer to tow lighter loads. Ideally your towing vehicle will weigh more than what you tow with it. But that being said, I do like the kind of lower slug-back style of the Continental compared to the town cars, and I find it highly unlikely that I'll ever have more than one other passenger with me as I am in my escapades going forward. I kind of figure I'm at that point in life at 35 where if I was going to have children, it would have happened by now. So I'm only really worried about making sure I can accommodate one other person in my journeys. That being said, with the town car, or Continental here, this came with a 400 cubic inch or 7-liter V8 in it. It produces a whopping 140 or so horsepower due to the constrictions on it from being created to be a California car. So it had to pass California emissions back in the 70s. Now, my mechanic has said he can get me about 20 more horsepower if he rips all of that out, but that would be a big pain in the butt to do so we're not going to worry about it for now. In fact, our general line of talk has been this engine that's in here was so throttled down that it would be better to just flat out replace it than do work to this engine to try to increase the horsepower that it has. You might be thinking to yourself, well, it's got a lot of torque, couldn't it tow anyways? Even with the amount of torque it has, 140 horsepower is not going to be enough to drag this car plus a 4,000 pound camper through the hills. And what I'm hoping to do in 10 years, so this is like the 10-year plan, 5 to 10-year plan, is to basically either sell my house, because they're doing a lot of development around where I am, for a significant profit margin, and have like some place where I can stay, quote unquote permanently, so I can keep teaching at the virtual school, or have a PO box in the area so I can keep teaching at the virtual school and camp part of the year here in Florida, and kind of take on the caravan lifestyle. If you've seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape, they had a caravan of folks that just kind of traveled around in a large group and would stay in one area for a while, then go to another area and follow the weather. And with the coming of Starlink and the fact that there is such opportunity for remote teaching now, that's kind of where I want to be in 10 years when I'm 45, is, rolling around the countryside and, being able to, say, spend a month in Arizona, a month in Montana, a month in New York, a month in Michigan, a month in Florida, and just follow whatever weather I please and be able to pick things up. But I don't want to buy a new age truck for that. Not only are they incredibly expensive, like my grand total price tag on car and rig with what I'm planning on doing, should come out to about $70,000. I'd be that far in just on a pickup, with a modern pickup, that I would need to get one big enough and powerful enough to do what I want to do. So the first things that I got to get done to this car, obviously I need some more gauges. I have literally a giant clock in here that doesn't work, and no one can get it to work. And I have a speedometer that goes to 80 miles an hour. And while that speedometer is fine for me, I'm looking to have the clock replaced. And with similar, like dial readouts for my engine temperature. I'm hoping to have it set up to read engine temperature, RPMs, transmission temperature, and other needful things like that. The car itself, I plan on raising a few inches and putting it onto SUV tires, because I don't want low profile tires, because I want to, retain that cushy Lincoln ride, and putting them on low profile tires just eliminates that cushy luxury ride that these things have. But by raising it a couple inches and using SUV tires, I will be able to put on like 17-inch rims and do the turbine spoke rims off of the Navigators and put them on this car. And that'll take away my worry of constantly losing hubcaps. I haven't lost one yet, knock on wood, but hubcaps are hubcaps and they're easy to lose. So I'd much rather have rims on the car so I don't have to worry about that. Not to mention the slightly larger rims will help with pulling the camper into places where I need a little more ground clearance. And having the car raised a few inches will also help with that, so it'll sit, a little bit more on the level of a small pickup, small SUV. Because this thing is very low right now, and if I have a camper tongue on the back pressing down, I might have trouble pulling in and out of some driveways, let alone in and out of some camp spaces. That being said, the plan is to put a full, towing package in the back end with what's necessary. The 5 mile per hour bumper guards on the front and back, we plan to replace those with basically push bar guards and put a couple of winches on there just in case I happen to get stuck in some place. That little crossfire emblem up there, that's going to be removed and then rewelded on top of a set of Longhorns, just because I feel like I have to with what I'm doing to the car. The inside, right now it's all the very basic cloth interior with a little bit of leather trim on it. Our plan is to take all the padding out of these and add in a second layer of padding wrapped in leather and leave it as like a leather and cloth combo, looking really old school. But that'll have some higher density foam for holding heavier people, because I'm a big guy and I can already feel this seat kind of taking on the shape of me. So I want to have my bench seats a little more sturdy and a little more lumbar supportive, which also means putting in headrests that are adjustable and whatnot, as well as dropping the seats to the floor and moving them back a little, just to create a little more clearance in the front end, because again, I'm not worried about having passengers in the back. And then the back seat is likely going to either be left as a back seat or be completely removed and set up to be a travel style system get up with like a built-in cooler perhaps, and stuff like that. Just the car should be completely customized on the inside, new mirrors and everything, just to maximize comfort as a road trip car and towed vehicle. Now, for you motorheads, the powertrain's got to change on this. First things first, this currently has a C6 transmission in it, which is a 3-speed transmission that doesn't have an overdrive. So you can guess what kind of mileage I get when I'm doing 55 miles an hour. It ain't good. So even throttled down and everything, 55 miles an hour, I'm getting about 10 miles per gallon. Fortunately, I've got a 25-gallon tank. So I've been driving now for 70 miles, and it's still telling me I'm on a full tank, so I must be getting really good gas mileage right now, rolling at 57 to 60 miles an hour, because my mechanical cruise control doesn't hold the speed perfectly, but it holds it at kind of like a slight wobble between a couple miles per hour. Much to the joy of the people behind me. Then, so we're going to swap out that C6 for a modern truck transmission. I haven't decided yet whether I want to go with a 6-speed or 10-speed automatic, but we will figure out which one fits in best and use that. The rear differential and rear axles are already beefier than most F-150s, so we may be able to leave those alone, but that'll depend on the size of the travel trailer I want to put on. And the engine itself, Ford in the last few years has started to make a crate engine. Now everyone kept talking about doing an LS swap in this thing, and I was like, I don't want to be the 900th and 99th LS swap that somebody sees in a day. So I've been looking for other alternatives. And there was the thought of doing a Cobra engine for a bit, but at the end of the day, that's meant to be a race engine, not a towing engine. So it gets most of its horsepower at a higher RPM. And I don't want that. I need my low end torque for towing. And I want to be able to tow and not have to, race the engine to get my power. So what I'm looking at is a crate engine called the Godzilla, which is a 7.3 liter V8 made out of all modern materials. And it's set up where you can set it up with 4-barrel carburetors on it instead of having fuel injection. So I'll be able to keep this car without having a computer in it, which is one of my goals, is to maintain that classic aspect of carbureted engine, no computer in the system, minimal electronics other than the entertainment system. Now that crate engine hooked up to the 10-speed transmission should give me an optimum tow-in speed between 2,000 and 4,000 RPMs, which will provide for me 350 to 460 horsepower out of the crate. But I've already talked with the mechanic about including a supercharger in this, and a supercharger instead of a turbocharger. This way I get that power right out of the get-go. Yeah, they siphon off a little bit of mechanical energy from the engine, but the return is totally worth it. So the rough thought is that the engine will be putting out roughly 600 horsepower at 3,000 RPMs with the supercharger on it, which means I should be able to pull, a 4,000 to 6,000 pound travel trailer behind me on a pretty steep gradient and not, have to worry about stalling out, overheating the engine, things being too heavy, so on and so forth. To that effect, we'll also be replacing the drum brakes in the car with power disc brakes, very large ones, to make sure that I have all the stopping power I need going downhill. It's basically a no expense spared conversion of this 79 Continental into the towing powerhouse that I'm going to need to travel the country and even go up into Canada and down into Mexico, perhaps take it down into Panama and take a ferry across down into Chile and Argentina to go see the world a bit. So that's basically the idea, is to have this turned into the ultimate touring vehicle. So that's the plan, and I'll be able to travel around, and as long as I have telephone access during the day and reliable internet access through the Starlink, I'll be able to continue working so I can kind of schedule myself to, say get up in the morning, grade some papers, teach a lesson on Zoom, take a lunch break camp, get in the car, do student calls while I'm driving, pull into the next campsite, set up, and do it all over again, and just slowly make my way around the country. And I think that'll be a very nice way to live for a while, until I'm ready to drop roots and settle down, and until we see what everything's going to happen, or what all will happen. The one catch-all with this is obviously that I'm going to either need to turn my current house into a rental property or sell it off. And then there's also that concern of, if shit does hit the fan, what's going to happen? And if shit does hit the fan, then I think I'm going to be a little less concerned about travel. But I'll still have a beefed up, non-computer car that can be worked on by anyone who's capable of fixing a lawnmower. That'll also be built way over spec for everything, and therefore unlikely to break under normal wear and tear. That's part of why your, big Duramax diesels and everything lasts forever with those trucks. Because, the big Cummins diesels and whatnot, they were built to be work trucks. So if you're using one just for some light duty towing every now and then, and as a daily driver, it's under a fraction of the wear and tear it's designed to be put through. Like the rear differential gearboxes on those are the size of my head, compared to something that's normally the size of your fist on a car. It's meant for getting beat up. So under normal wear and tear, it just doesn't wear and tear. But that's our video. That's my summary of what I plan on doing to this. Obviously, the infotainment bit will be a little more complicated and subject to where the technology is at the time. But until next time, this has been Cruising and Musing. As you can hear, my voice is starting to go loud, so I'm gonna hang up and move on. Adios.